Welcome back to Garden Studio. I'm Tessa Pinner, a designer and gardener in upstate South Carolina, Zone 8A. Today's video is all about how to deal with tree loss and storm damage in your garden. As many of you know, we in the Southeastern US have just experienced a pummeling from Hurricane Helene, a Category 4 storm that came through in the last few days. Now, many areas were hit even worse than us, but we lost two very large trees that were kind of foundational to our garden landscape. So in this video, I'm going to show you the damage, talk through some of the ramifications and how we're thinking through processing this, and even talk about ideas and dreams for maybe what can come next, and how if you experience loss or some sort of major change in your own garden, how you might deal with that as well. I am standing next to one of two large pecans that we lost. My guess is that these date back to the establishment of the house, which would be about 70 years. So 70-year-old tree, pecans are not known for being incredibly sturdy, very spreading in their branch structure, and basically they really catch the wind if they're alone in a field, not in a stand. So this one we did have pruned. It's always, kind of side note, a good idea to get your trees evaluated, especially if you know there might be structural weakness. We did what we could for this tree last year, had it pruned. It was as stable as it could be, but 70-mile-an-hour winds will knock a tree down. So this one fell towards our chicken coop. It smashed part of the fence. It's actually supported right now by an iron gate. And we have done what we can as a family to kind of clean up and make the gate passable so we can take care of the chickens.
Chickens look like strawberry.
It looks amazing!
Well, dinner, but we're at a point where if we took the log with tape, we think we're afraid the whole tree would fall.
Something like this happens, the first thing in my mind is always safety. What do you need to do to secure the site? Do you need to stay away from it completely and just have a professional come in? You know, is there anything dangling, suspended? In this case, we've done what we can, and the safe next step is to call in somebody. Kind of immediately on the heels of that is just practical concerns. Okay, now that we know this is going to be removed from the equation, how does that change the site conditions in this area? Well, the very obvious one is that it removes a whole shade canopy for this zone of the yard. And this area to my left, actually, we were planting an edible meadow. We seeded it, and it's really just ground cover at this point. But we plan to do some flowering and fruiting shrubs and trees. And actually, this large canopy tree was taking a lot of light. So upside for us of this coming down, as sad as we are about it, is that it does open up the upper story for potentially more fruit trees. So I might actually pull the orchard that we had thought, okay, maybe one or two trees down here along with blueberry and blackberry and other fruiting things. Maybe I pull a little grove of fruit trees up into this area. And now I can do that because I'll have the light and I'll have the space. Another thing to think about, which isn't a condition so much here as it may be if you were on a significant slope, but if you have a tree that's holding a bank, it falls over, you're going to be dealing with more erosion and some topography changes as you evaluate, the roots coming out and all of that. So this is not steep. I don't expect it'll significantly change drainage or water movement here. The main thing I'm thinking about is just the light. This view is a shot we've captured before, but it looks a little different now. So another large pecan that was in the middle of the yard over this way fell towards our potting shed, and now we've joked that we have a tree fort and a temporary garden arbor over this walkway, which, again, same thing here, practical considerations. It's off the structure and pruned back to allow access. And then at this point, we're just waiting for a tree professional to come in and to take care of the bulk and anything that would not be safe for us to do ourselves. So again, thinking about how does this change the space? Well, we have a large area of lawn over here that we call the park. And previously, this tree kind of commanded the middle of the park. And now it opens up a lot more sky. It's going to be a lot sunnier, a lot brighter, less feeling of shelter back here. We're going to miss this tree probably a lot more than the other tree that we lost. This has a lot more emotional component as far as what it meant to our kids, the time we spent with it. Really, all of our family gatherings outside have involved this tree. Both of our boys had their first swings attached to one of the branches. We spent a lot of time under it, and we will miss it. We will definitely have to grieve its loss. So there is a component of having to process a thing that you've lost. And the only other thing I could compare it to is when a neighbor cut down a very large tree that was part of a borrowed view. So that might actually be something, maybe it's not a storm for you, maybe it is a neighbor cutting down a tree, maybe it's a power company coming through and clearing, or you have someone adjacent to your lot that clear cuts to build. Anything like that that really changes the environment of your garden, it will be a loss of some kind. One analogy is that, we've taken out a big brother, we've taken out a member of the family, and it will be interesting to see how everything else adapts. There are plenty of plantings in this direction that will be getting probably 30 to 40% more sun than they were before. Some of them will do fine, and some of them I expect I'll have to move. So that's also a practical consideration. It's not as if I had a large shade garden right at the foot of this tree. I don't have an immediate huge amount to move, but I will be watching to see, okay, when all of the shade is gone, especially next spring and early summer, what are the plants doing in response? Are they shriveling? Do they look like they're browning out? Do I need to dig them up and move them to somewhere with more shelter? One thing we may do to kind of memorialize this tree is to take a piece of it, maybe a piece of the main trunk, and try to get something made out of it. Trees can hold memories, and this might look different for someone else. Maybe it's preserving a leaf, maybe it's just framing a picture of a kid with the tree or a great memory. So for us, we've thought maybe we'll try to save a piece of this tree. We'll definitely be using a lot of it for firewood, and in that way it will continue being part of our gatherings and our family memories. I don't yet know what I want to do here. It's not obvious to me like it was with the other tree. It's possible I may come in and plant a new memorial tree that I know I'm probably not going to see ever be nearly so majestic in my lifetime. Part of the sadness with losing a mature tree is that it takes so many decades to get to its full majestic size. And yes, you can replant, and yes, the garden regenerates, but it isn't fast with a tree. So I'm just as likely to say I'm not necessarily going to try to replace this tree, knowing that I'm not still going to be here in 70 years to see it look like this. Maybe I will think through something else special to do at the perimeters. Maybe I'll do a tree somewhere else and leave this open and just call it a larger play lawn for the boys. So we'll see, that will evolve, but just knowing this is going to look different in the future, and that's okay. Thanks for watching. This is part of the story of our garden, and gardens evolve. They're never finished, and even when you think you might be finished, something happens to show you that you're not done yet. So maybe you've had a similar experience. We certainly feel very grateful to have escaped damage to our house and any kind of significant safety concerns in light of this storm. We understand a lot of people had it much worse. So we're feeling grateful and processing how we move forward from here. I hope you all have a great week in your own gardens.